All right. So again, my name is Erica Hill, and I am the Community Arts Development Specialist in our Carson City office. Today, I'm also joined by our Community Arts Development Specialist in our Las Vegas office, Michelle Patrick, who I work very closely with, and our Nevada Arts Council grants team, Stephanie Montgomery and Krista Ficken. Today, we're going to be providing an overview of the project grant for organizations. We're going to go around some of the nuances of eligibility and provide some examples from our fiscal year 23 grantees. Their projects took place between July 2022 and June 2023. We're also going to be giving a quick overview of the application itself, the scoring criteria for panelists, and some funding restrictions. We'll go into some common issues we see from our grantees, and going over this briefly will save us time and you time, especially as you start reading these materials for yourself. And then at the end, I'm going to show you our current grant offerings and ways that you can maximize our grants and get multiple grants if you can. All right, I'm going to be going pretty quick through this beginning part, just so we can get to the juicy bits, and then you can ask your questions. All right, first, I'm going to give some quick facts. This map up here is a map of our grantees across the state. We try to get into as many communities as we can, and we're always encouraging communities to come join us and get a project grant to do work in their communities. So for this year, the project grant for organizations is due by March 1st at 5 o'clock, and the award amount is up to $7,000 with an in-kind or cash match. So in-kind is volunteer hours, and cash can also be through donations. This grant is specifically for creative projects that take place between July 1st, 2024 and June 30th, 2025. And for any organization that's applying, they must have a UEI number with sam.gov. We recently received updated guidance from the NEA, and for applications to Nevada Arts Council, you only need to have a UEI number assigned to your organization, which currently does not expire. If you have more questions about this, you can reach out to our grant staff, and they'll also be on at the end for our Q&A portion. Now we're going to get into nonprofit organizations. So nonprofit organizations are eligible for our grants if they have a federal tax exempt status as a Section 501c3 with the IRS. And they also have to have an active incorporation status with the Nevada Secretary of State, showing evidence of good standing at the time of their application. For project grants for organizations, we also see public government institutions. These include government agencies and federally recognized tribes. Agencies can exist within the same governmental entity, and they can apply independently as long as they have distinct mission statements and their own separate advisory boards. We also see multiple departments or facilities within one agency, but they cannot apply if they're not independent. We get many colleges coming in for the project grant for organizations, and they can only get one grant per academic year. And they also have to serve a broad community, so not just the students and the faculty that are on campus, but the broader community. And it cannot support their internal programs. We also have public schools and other public institutions, such as libraries, that receive our grants. And again, schools and libraries within the same district system may apply independently, but they have to have their own budgets and their own buildings. All right, so that was a really quick overview. You can read more about that in our grant guidelines and policies. We'll again be answering some more questions near the end. But I really want to give some time to show some examples of our FY23 PGO grantees. So these projects took place between July 1st, 2022 and June 30th, 2023. The first one up I have is Collateral & Co. They gave an Art Town performance in 2022. And this is a really great example of how our grant payment system can have limitations, but how it can still work for your organization. So Art Town registrations due in early spring, and so is our project grant for organization application. So we have to go through the entire process of panel and then awarding funding. So it's likely that you might not get paid in time to fund a project like this, but you will get reimbursed for something like this. So July can kind of be a crunchy time. However, these grants do take time to plan, and it's based on panel scores. So you cannot bet that you're going to get the full amount by that July date anyways. However, as Collateral & Co. shows, the show must go on. I'm also going to be talking now about the Henderson Symphony Orchestra. They are a group in the Las Vegas area who offer 11 concerts per year and engage over 80 musicians for the Music for Kids concert, Young Artist competition, and Henderson Symphony Orchestra Conductor Camp. They promote classical music appreciation and education. And in their 2022-2023 year, we supported them in part for their Music for Kids concert. This event happens every spring and includes sponsorships from around the community to reach and serve over 2,500 students. PGA funds were used to pay for instrument rentals and transportation fees. We also have a regular for our project grant for organizations, which is the Pinkerton Ballet, who perform the Nutcracker in Carson City. They've been doing this for over 35 years, and they're an example of one of our grantees that applies annually for the same event. They're a smaller organization, and they use PGO funds differently than our larger organizations. And in 2022, the funding went towards their venue rental, artist fees, marketing, and other materials. We have another example coming from Northwestern Nevada, and that's High Desert Harmony. They are a barbershop choir, but specifically invite all individuals that identify as women or non-binary, of all ages, ethnicities, backgrounds, and abilities who love to sing, regardless of music training or experience. They also apply annually for our project grant for organizations to support their annual holiday show. And in this specific performance, they also worked with an ASL interpreter for this event. In total, they use PGO funds towards artist fees, facility costs, materials, and marketing. They receive in-kind support from volunteer hours, services, and donated facility space. We also see some larger events such as Nevada Humanities Crawl. They did a literary crawl in 2022, which was an all-day community event of books, art, ideas, and the humanities, hosted at various venues across Reno with the mission to celebrate the rich literary talent throughout the region. The bulk of their funding for this large event came from federal support, and for the Nevada Arts Council support for the Project Grant for Organization actually paid for the author Amy Nazuka Matil, who is a very prolific poet, to come to the event, and also covered promotional materials, including postcards, posters, and stickers that were given to the attendees. One of our other grantees that applies annually for the same event is Latino Arte. They use the funding for their Fiesta on Wells event in Reno. Last year, Latino Arte also worked with another FY24 grantee. We don't have those final report photos yet, but I'm really excited to share them soon. They worked with Nevada Main Street for their second annual Dia de los Muertos Festival, providing artists, artistic direction, and support. Latino Arte's Fiesta on Wells increasingly draws community support. It's really grown over its 5 years. I think it's at 7 years now. And they have all kinds of artists, comedians, folkloric ballet, and other dance groups. They have painters and other artists of Hispanic descent. They have 70 vendors of small businesses, food vendors, nonprofit health organizations, and colleges. This event has really grown, and PGO funds mostly cover now their artist fees and the city street closure. The rest of their large budget is recovered from volunteers, donations, and the organization itself. Now to provide an example from a government institution or one of our education institutions, we did have Henderson Public Libraries come in to do a mural in their Paso Verde library reading room. I really love this quote they had in their final report. It says, "Libraries can be more than buildings that house books and computers. Libraries can be destinations." They transformed this room and small event space with this mural using PGO funds to pay for the artist fees, the artist supplies, and the artist travel. The process included an advisory committee, call to artists, and selection from the top 3 artist proposals. The completed mural is the work of Bonnie Kelso of Las Vegas. In their final report, Henderson Library shared this, but also from their budget, I can say they used these funds to 100% pay for the artist. They learned that creating inviting spaces is important to our community and our patronage. Unlike a single event, the mural will make an impact for years to come. All right, I want to present with a municipality example. This is Las Vegas Bluegrass Festival. They did their 7th annual Bluegrass Festival using PGO funds in April of 2023 at Centennial Hills Park. This event included a rockin' lineup of musicians. It included over 5,000 people. The entirety of the Project Grant for Organizations Award was used to pay the Cody Norris Band. The rest of the event was supported by local government funds. I also really want to shout out the city of Las Vegas here because they partnered with us for the Arts and Economic Prosperity Study 6, and they surveyed at this event, and we have fantastic data for this that you can use for your own arts advocacy efforts and show the economic and cultural impact of the arts. You can find that on our website. Another example I wanted to give from this batch of PGO grantees is the Nevadans for Cultural Preservation. They provide educational services and assistance with protecting cultural resources through field projects, public outreach events, print and social media. Their Modern Desert Markings project connected historic land art with emerging Las Vegas artists. And I really like this example because it shows that you do not necessarily have to have a traditional arts-based mission if you're seeking to do a community-based arts and cultural project. This grantee actually specifically identified themselves as a folklife or traditional arts. And the Nevadans for Cultural Preservation used their PGO funds for project personnel, artist fees, office materials, production materials, marketing materials, and travel. Their in-kind match was over double their grant award in volunteer time and travel. All right, now that I have you all warmed up with some of our grantee projects from 2022, hopefully you are thinking of projects of your own that you might want to do in your communities. I want to get you back on track for applications this year. We're going to briefly go over the application sections, and then we're going to look at how the panelists score these applications. We'll show you some of the funding restrictions, and we'll close out this section with common issues. The purpose of these next few slides is really to get you ready to see what you're going to have in the guidelines, the application questions, and our grant policies as a whole. That way you can get familiar with these concepts when you read these documents and fill out your applications. All right, so I'll begin with the application sections itself. There's 3 major criteria for our applications. There's the narrative, where you tell your story in words. There's the budget, where you tell your story in numbers. And there's the work samples, where you show your stories. We're going to go over this quite a bit in detail and not as quick as I'm going today in the Telling Your Stories in Grant Applications webinar on February 14th at 1 p.m. on Zoom. So why you really want to be focused on those items is that they all add to your evidence, your story, your participation for funding support when we have panelists who are educating these. So we don't have final say on the scores you get. We actually push it out to panelists, and they're looking at these 3 major criteria points: project planning and management, community impact and artistic merit, and artistic excellence. We also have some funding restrictions. This is a snapshot of the funding restrictions that you will see for this specific grant. We do have a larger grant policies document that you'll want to review. So project grant for organization funds may not be used for classes, workshops, or other arts learning activities. This is a very specific grant we have. It's the Arts Learning Project Grant. It's actually opening up on February 1st. Also, it cannot be used for general operating support, including staff salaries. That is our operational support grant, which will open again next spring. And it cannot purchase permanent equipment, and you cannot use it for fundraising. So basically, examples that we saw from our previous grantees is, yes, they worked with youth, but it wasn't specifically a project that taught youth. And yes, people paid for artists and artist fees, but they didn't specifically pay salaries for their staff. All right, we have some common issues we also see, and we wanted to highlight these to, again, save you time and us time later. So the budget's a really big part of how you're showing your case for funding. And one of the things that we have to have is your income and expenses must match. So you might be using this $7,000, right, in total, but we want to see how you're spending that. And your income is probably going to exceed $7,000 for your event. So all those things must match. It has to account for the total grant funding requested. So if you're requesting $7,000, it cannot be $6,995. And we also want to see a budget narrative to explain how you will use the funds. This used to be optional, but we noticed that folks who were filling this out in their grant applications were scoring better. And so we're making it mandatory moving forward so that everybody is on a more equal platform for really fighting for their funds with panelists. We also see common issues around project planning, which was a huge chunk of the scoring criteria. And that has to do a lot with providing support for your statements. And so, you don't just say, I am going to work with this person in my community. You go, I have communicated with this person in this timeline, and we have set a plan to work together. Just those really specific parts that show you're doing the work, not just telling you're doing the work. And also supporting artists. Again, really showing that you're supporting artists, not just saying you're going to support artists. All right. So now I'm going to get into this final section talking about our current grant offerings. I'll try to slow down for this bit. And what we're looking at here is more insight into our current grant offerings and also what it is that you can do to maximize our grants. So first, our fiscal year operates July 1st to June 30th. And that means that our grants go on this cycle as well. So projects beginning between July 1st and June 30th is what you're requesting funding for this go. On this chart, you can see that we have quite a few grant offerings for organizations this cycle. There's the project grant for organizations, which we're talking about today. Then there's also the Arts Learning Project grant, and that is for workshops and classes. We also have a Folk Life Community grant. And then our Arts Learning Express grant, Cycle A and Cycle B, those can also be utilized. Our operational support grant is very specific to nonprofits. It's one of those things that you can use to keep the lights on, to pay for salaries, but that runs on a 2-year cycle, and so it won't open again until early 2025. I also want to share with you our grant offerings for individuals. You might have artists living in your communities or be an artist yourself. And we have quite a few. So this cycle right now, we're having project grant for artists Cycle A and Cycle B. And what this means is that it's open for applications within a 6-month cycle. We also have the Folk Life Artist Grant, and we also rotate our fellowships. So this year is our Visual Arts 2 and 3D fellowship. And also, if you're an individual artist, you can join our teaching roster, which is a vetted program through our Arts Learning program area. And you would also be a candidate then for our Arts Learning Express grant. And that supports residencies and workshops at a smaller scale, and the applications due 30 days before the project. And for this year, we also have a Folk Life Heritage Fellowship. The nominations will open May 1st and close June 30th. And then once someone's nominated, they need to apply to become part of the fellowship. And if you know anyone in your community that you think would be fantastic for this, I really do encourage you to nominate them for this award this year. All right. So this is the part I'm really excited to get to because I love to demystify and maximize grants for our organizations. And very specifically, Operation Support Grant is just for our nonprofits. And those who get the OSG grant, they're not eligible for the grant we're talking about today. They're not eligible for project grant for organization, but they are for the Arts Learning Project grant. So those who are getting a project grant for organizations, which we're talking about today, you can get the Arts Learning Express grant too, for a maximum of $8,500 annually. And so this would be for one project within the year or a series of projects for the project grant for organizations, and then an additional teaching opportunity, such as having a resident artist come in. And then we also have the Folk Life Community Grant. This is for organizations that have an annual budget under $30,000, but they can get the Folk Life Community Grant and the Arts Learning Express grant for a total of $4,500 annually. And then again, we have this sort of interesting area here with the Arts Learning Project Grant and Operational Support Grant, because Arts Learning Project Grant is very similar to the Project Grant for organizations, but it's specific to arts learning activities. But while doubling this up, you can get that $7,000 annually plus a tier based on your income. So your annual gross income that is reported, if it's between $10,000 and $100,000, you can get $5,000 a year. And then on the other side of things, if you have an annual budget of $1 million or more, you can get $25,000 annually. And again, this is to keep the lights on and to pay for rent. And we all know how important it is to pay for rent these days. All right. So before we jump into questions here, I do want to thank the Nevada Arts Council staff who are with us today. Michelle Patrick, who I work so closely with, Stephanie and Krista, who manage all of our Nevada Arts Council grants. And most importantly, I really want to thank you for being here with us today. Your participation shows your commitment to the arts in Nevada and the communities we all serve. Super looking forward to hearing your questions. And seriously, I'm excited to stop talking and let my colleagues help me field some questions. All right, I see a hand. Hi, Suzanne.
I'm sorry if I raised my hand.
Oh, well, it's nice to hear your voice.
Thank you.
If
Good
anyone
to be
has,
here.
absolutely. If anyone has any questions, I know I went really fast through that. Again, this will be recorded. Please go ahead and raise your hand and we'll give you the ability to speak. All right, Joel.
Hi, I didn't follow what you meant in budget by the income and expenses must match. I understand what an expense is, but what is an income in this sense? Is that the income that we're receiving from the Nevada Arts Council, or is that other income associated with an event that you're supporting?
I'm going to let our grants team take this one because they understand the nuances of the budget so much.
So I'll just jump in here. And Krista, if you have anything to add. So in terms of the income and expenses balancing, when you're submitting your grant application, you're projecting what expenses you're going to have, and you're projecting what your income will be. And we just want those to balance and match to show that you're anticipating your costs and you're thinking about how you're going to cover those costs. Now, expenses should be all expenses, meaning that are paid expenses, and income should include all kinds of income, specifically, funding that you receive that includes the Nevada Arts Council grant funding that you are requesting at the time for the project, but any other kinds of income. Now, for in-kind, which is also part of the budget, you would calculate the cost, right? The added value of things like volunteer hours or donated space. But if you had a cash donation that was part of your income, you would not put it in the in-kind section. Anything to add, Krista? And then we can check and see if that makes sense with Joel.
I would say just a lot of the time we'll see the income and in-kind, the same amounts duplicated in both of those sections. So if something is income, it should not also be down in kind. It should be in one or the other. And the income is really just all of the different funding sources that are helping you to cover the expenses of your proposed project.
Great. So I'm going to summarize my understanding, and you can tell me if I'm right. That for an event that maybe costs $20,000 beyond what the Nevada Arts Council can give, what you want to see is how we're going to spend the $7,000 from you, how we're going to raise the other $13,000, and that there is no extra money generated by this event.
Correct. Correct, Krista.
And yes,
Great.
at the time of application, that's correct. When if awarded funding in your final report, you would show what those actual income is, so you could hopefully earn more income than you're anticipating. We just want to see in the application that you have a strong sense of where all of the funding is going to come from to cover the proposed expenses.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Joel. That's why we brought the experts on today. We had a question in the chat from Alicia. If our organization received an operational support grant in 2023, may we still apply for the project grant? And unfortunately for the project grant for organizations, you cannot get operational support grant, but you can get the Arts Learning Project grant. That's also a $7,000 grant. That is the same rules around in-kind and cash match. It's just for a different type of community project. Are there any other questions? Does anyone here have a specific project they're looking to do and are a first-time grantee that maybe hasn't done this before. Because you have the floor now, and I would love to hear more about your project and see how we can make that possible for you.
It looks like we do have a question in the Q&A, Erica, from Alicia Holland. For next year, if our organization has an arts project that serves the community but doesn't specifically foster community arts appreciation slash education, would that be eligible? For example, artists who make handmade items that are donated to underserved children.
Oh,
So I'll take that one. So this one, Alicia, would fall under the project grant for organizations. And we actually do have some organizations that come in for something like this. The Nevada Woodchucks, for instance, come in to get help with their program where they're handcrafting items that they give out during the holidays to underserved children throughout the state. So something like that would fall under project grant for organizations. Anything for the Arts Learning Project does have to be specifically arts learning related.
And I'll just provide some clarity for that too, why there's that distinction between arts learning and project grant for organization. So the arts learning project grant and the arts learning express grant, they both require a teaching artist, not necessarily someone from our roster, but someone who has a resume and experience in teaching. So if you're doing a project that is not specifically involving teaching, but might have youth involved, such as the Music for Kids example, right? And they're renting equipment. That falls under project grant for organization. But as soon as you're involving an educator, we want to see that fall into the arts learning, express grant, or project grant. Thank you, Alicia. Are there any other questions? If you're feeling shy, you can go ahead and pop that into the chat. And oh, yay. I'm so glad that was helpful, Meredith. Do you have any questions or things you're thinking about specifically? Or anyone else? I know some of the names in this chat, and so I'm doing my best not to call on you. But if you're at all thinking about what kind of projects you want to do or how you can best utilize the funding, if there's anything that's confusing, please do not hesitate to reach out to me or to our grants team. We're really about trying to make sure these things are maximized and everyone in our community is enjoying the arts. Are y'all hungry? Is that what's
No.
going on? Well, I will wait a little longer to see if anyone is feeling less shy and would like to talk a little bit more with us. Currently, we have about 22 people in the attendees, so it's not like you're around 100 people. You're around 20 folks in Nevada who also care about the arts. So if you would all want to talk more about project grant for organization or other grants questions that you might have, now is absolutely the time. Oh, we have one from Suzanne. Any conflict with also applying for the Nevada Commission on Tourism? So Suzanne, are you talking about other grants through like the Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs?
Yeah, specifically the rural marketing grant, which I think will, for our project, which is going to be a 40th anniversary celebration of the Goldwell Open Air Museum, we need to make some noise. And I'd rather spend their money on making noise and spend your money on paying our artists to come back.
I love that mentality. And so we often see grantees come in with multiple different types of grants or different ways of supporting. And very specifically for those who are here that might not know, the Nevada Arts Council is an agency under the Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs that is also shared with Travel Nevada and the Museums and History Division. If you are doing projects with the other agencies, that does not conflict with us. And so if you were to get like a marketing grant from tourism, they also have the 3D destination development. That doesn't quite conflict with us. We do often see folks coming in that have a local government support, federal funding support, but I know there are some more nuances to this. And so I wanted to pass this over to our grants team because what I see is a little different than the policy they know.
So the only thing that I would suggest is make sure that if there are any limits to federal funding and your matched dollars, to take a close look at that before applying for multiple for the grants at the different agencies, because sometimes you'll see you'll just see that some of ours you can't have anything else that has a federal funding.
Right.
A different grant that has federal funding attached to it when ours does. So just make sure that you're looking at that in the guidelines from each of us.
Thank you.
Hi, Christopher. Thanks for raising your hand.
Can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, hi. Thank you so much for your presentation. We have an organization called Stand the Play, which is a play to help break the stigma of mental illness. And I think I jumped the gun by coming to this meeting because I didn't know you have to have a 501c3 to do this one. So we're not at that level yet. But I wanted to ask, like, I guess, because I saw the individual funding as well, and we're a cast of 6 actors that go out into the community. We've done it in Southern California, and I just moved back to Southern Nevada. So I'm in a position where, like, I would like to apply for funding, and I guess my next step probably is 501c3, or do I apply for the individual funding? I'm sort of like, I'm very new to all this, so please forgive me if I'm just, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I know that we've been doing this for the past like 6 years in Southern California, just as an independent organization. But I think it's time to take our organization to the next level kind of thing. And now that I'm based in Southern Nevada, and then do I just apply to mental health organizations, or is it also considered a Nevada Arts Council like possibility? So that was a long-winded question. Did I even ask a question? I don't even know.
You did. You gave a lot of context too. So Christopher, I'm going to let our grants team really answer the nuances around our project grant for artists, because I think they'll better do that. But we often have groups come in that don't have an arts mission for their nonprofit or for their public institution, and they want to do a art or cultural project. And so we have the Nevadans for Cultural Preservation, and they do have a cultural forward mission, but it's not necessarily towards contemporary art. And so what they did is they worked with prehistoric art with contemporary artists. For our FY23, which was 2022 to 2023 cycles, we also had the Reno Housing Authority come in, and they partnered with Urban Roots for a gardening project, but also did a mural so that they can create a outdoor innovation station. So we're not always seeing folks who come in strictly for like a traditional arts who are wanting to do community projects. And so very easily, if you're doing a performance piece about mental health, that is something that is both in that sort of public health realm that you maybe want to work with a nonprofit on, but you also could work with someone in the arts specifically.
Okay.
And if this helps too, Christopher, if your organization, if your group did not pursue or isn't going to pursue becoming a 501c3 in the future, you could have yourself or one of your members be the primary applicant for our project grant for artists. The cycle that's coming up, we just recently had one cycle close, is our fiscal year 25 to 6-month period cycle. So if you go to our fiscal year 25 grant offerings page, you can see more details about that. Just looking really quickly for our upcoming cycle, cycle A, that would be for projects that run from July 1st to December 31st of this year, 2024. Applications are going to open on February 1st, and the deadline would be April 1st. And you would list your members of your group as collaborating artists and provide information for them as well. Now that one is only for $3,000, but there is no match required. So I don't know if that helps, Christopher, but you can always also reach out to the grants team, call us, email for more about that as well.
Wow, and thank you. And I know Michelle, I met Michelle just last week. Hi, Michelle.
Sorry,
Michelle,
Michelle.
your
Or
volume is not working.
I'm so sorry. One of those tech days. Christopher, I'm putting a couple things in the chat as well. I'm come from the nonprofit world. I'm pretty pro nonprofit. So I've put in our step to be a nonprofit. And then I'm also putting in the first of a 3-part YouTube series on nonprofit management. It's not for everyone. Again, you can use the Project Grant for Artists as a opportunity to do this project. Maybe someone wants to pick you up from another nonprofit, but in case you're thinking about going that route, we do have some resources you can check out.
Wow, thank you so much for this.
All
I
right.
see a couple of questions in the Q&A. Alicia asked if we would be providing the slides and recording afterwards. I know, Erica, the recording is going to go up on our YouTube. The slides, I'm not sure if that was going to be dispersed to attendees.
We'll put it as a PDF in the description. So what we do for any supplemental materials, especially in like something like the nonprofit webinar, when it comes with worksheets, we'll just put that in the little YouTube description. We put it in our website, but it's easy when it's just corresponding like that.
And then we have another one from Stephanie. She says, hello, can you talk about applying for both a project grant and an operating support grant? Stephanie, if you mean applying for both of them at the same time, we cannot. The operating support grant, if you're a current operating support grantee recipient, you cannot also apply for a project grant for organizations. The Arts Learning Project is the only other one that can be applied for while you're a current operating support grantee, which is always a 2-year cycle if you're not aware of that. If there was more to the question than that, though, please go ahead and add something back in the Q&A if I didn't quite answer what you were asking. And then Anonymous asked, I am planning the 25th annual Intertribal Social Powwow. We would like to create a commemorative program covering the 25 years. We would like to use the funds to help cover the cost to create it. We've been told we would be receiving part of a match from the town.
Absolutely apply.
Yeah,
Sounds like
apply.
a fantastic project grant for organizations. This exactly fits that. We have had Stewart Indian School fund their Father's Day powwow through the Project Grant for organization. That is what we've been circulating this cycle as one of our promotional materials. And so you're eligible for that, especially as if you're working as a tribal government, a nonprofit, or if the town, it looks like the town might be the one that would be applying for that if it's not one of those other two. So my email is in the chat, and then you can find all of us online. So if you want to ask more questions, I'm happy to meet with you, to talk on the phone, something like that, to help with figuring out the best way to do it.
We have another question in the chat that I can definitely answer. Suzanne asked what the current status is of using a fiscal agent. We cannot currently accept fiscal agents for any of our applications.
Wow, that's big. That's new.
And I do also want to know, I see Christopher, your hand is still up. Let us know if you have a question. And Amy Fleming also has a question. I'm going to allow you to talk, Amy.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you all for what you do. I do have a question too, but I just appreciate everything that you guys have done to support and answer all our questions along the way. I have a question. I work with a nonprofit in another state that holds an arts convention in Nevada every year. And I'm wondering if or what they might need to do. Would it just be registering in Nevada, or is that not the type of thing you would look to fund?
I'll
It
chime in a
depends
little bit. Oh, sorry, go for it, Krista.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll chime in a little bit, and Krista will probably lead the way on this. So we do sometimes get out-of-state applicants, but they have to be, as far as I know, in a neighboring community. and they need to prove that at least 70% is going directly to Nevadans. And when we say prove, you don't just say I'm partnering with, you show, here's my contract with someone, this is my contact. So I think Krista will answer more to that, and perhaps we can get some more context.
Great.
That's pretty darn good there, Erica. Yeah, you've got to be close proximity to Nevada. The project that's happening has to significantly have impact in Nevada for Nevadans, and then, you know, a small portion can be for the area that it's coming from. I guess it kind of depends a little bit on what exactly they would be doing. So, you know, if you know any of that context, you can share it with us now, or we can see it when an application comes in.
Yeah, it's a chorus competition that's held in Northern Nevada. So I'm not sure, they're not paying the performers, but they pay the hotel and, you know, the venue space and things like that. So I'm not sure it's open to the public, but I don't know if it would qualify.
Where are they located?
They're located in Northern California. I'm not sure exactly which city, because groups come from all over the region.
Yeah, Amy, why don't you put them in an email with us and CC
Sure.
so that we can see if their address with the IRS needs to be within a certain amount of counties or something like that from Nevada, so we can get specific and look at that on our side, and then also see if they're able to do that. It sounds like it's close to the mark, so I don't want to say yes or no here.
All right, that's super helpful. Thank you.
I did want to jump into Amy and just share. I think you should also take a look at our general grant policies, our funding restrictions. That's on page 3 of our general grant policies. There are some funding restrictions around competitions, specifically competition awards, travel for competitions. So just take a peek too to see if you have any questions about that, just given what you've shared.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amy. Do we have any other questions? Well, you got 3 of our minds here with you. I've also really appreciated the dialogue. I'm always invigorated by seeing the projects that come through for our project grant for organizations and our Arts Learning Project grant. It's just some of the best that is happening in our communities. And if there's anyone here who's never applied for one of our grants and has a project, I want to make sure that we're finding ways to support you so that you can become one of our regular grantees as well, like we featured, because it is just amazing work to see this happen, especially the engagement we get from our youth and elders and people who maybe have never interacted with the arts. So obviously I have a big passion in it, but you can also just reach out and get some technical help with what that project might look like. I'm big on dreaming and making it reality. Well, if I don't see any questions coming up, I'll give it a few more seconds, but then I'll give you 15 minutes back to your day, and hopefully you can get a bite to eat and have an amazing afternoon. I really want to thank all of you who showed up today and the questions you asked, and letting us have this platform with you to talk about our project grant for organizations. I really want to thank our grants team, Krista and Stephanie, who are just doing a fantastic job with all of the grants we have going on. And I also want to pitch our next webinar. And so on February 14th, show some love, show up. We are going to be doing a Telling Your Story workshop. And what that will do is go through each of those 3 sections I talked about, the narrative, the budget, and the showing your support, to really emphasize what organizations can do. It's also pretty powerful for maybe an individual, but it will be geared towards our Arts Learning Project and Project Grant for organizations. And I think I see one more thing in the Q&A, which is thank you for this open and inclusive session. You guys are great. We appreciate positive feedback. Thank you so, so much. You know, there's many reasons we do this, and hearing why every once in a while is just really nice. So if I don't see anything else, I guess I will let you all go. Thank you again for being here with us, and thanks to the staff.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.